I have done a cultural immersion project on Mexican Americans. By the year July 2016, Mexican Americans made up 11.2% of the United States population, and it was a total of 36.3 million people. Mexico had to give up 500,000 square miles after the Mexican-American War in the year 1846, and those areas today are Arizona, California, Nevada, New Mexico, Texas, Utah, and parts of Wyoming. The 800,000 Mexicans who were living in that territory became US citizens. Another large-scale new migration occurred during the year 1910 when Mexico was torn by a civil war and people went north to safety. More Mexicans were brought in 1919 and 1923 to work in the steel mills and meat packing plants of Kansas City, and Chicago. Mexican-American school children in those days were subject to racial segregation in public schools and forced to attend Mexican schools in California until 1947 when it became unconstitutional. Most of the Mexicans worked as farm workers for very little wages. Cesar Chavez was a union leader and an activist who rallied to secure high wages and better working conditions for these farm workers. Mexican Americans are primarily Roman Catholic. Since the attack of 9/11, millions of undocumented Mexicans have taken year-round jobs in restaurants, hotels, construction, landscaping, and factories. Ever since the beginning, Mexican Americans have faced discrimination based on ethnicity, race, culture, poverty, and the use of Spanish language. For my in-depth immersion into this population, I read a book called The House on Mango Street. It is a story of a 12-year-old girl named Esperanza, who's a Chicana, which is another word for Mexican-American girl. The novel includes stories of many of Esperanza's neighbors, giving a full picture of the neighborhood. It especially shows how Chicana women are suppressed and dependent on men for everything. Esperanza's family moves into a Latino neighborhood in Chicago, which is primarily a poor Latino neighborhood. Esperanza makes friends with Lucy and Rachel, who are two Chicana girls living on the same street. Esperanza has to deal with a lot of shame in many instances. She's ashamed of her family's poverty and her difficult-to-pronounce name. She envies the kids who can eat lunch in the school canteen, whereas she has to go home and eat lunch. At her cousin's baptism, her mother buys her a beautiful new dress, but she cannot buy her shoes, so she has to wear her ugly brown school shoes with the dress. A black man who owns Gil's Furniture on the same street is very unfamiliar to Esperanza, and she's afraid to talk to him. She gets a job in a local photo finishing store, but she has to lie about her age to get that job. One day, a man who's much older and oriental forcibly kisses her in that shop. A new neighbor, Manacita, on Mango Street, never leaves her home because she is unable to speak English. Minerva, who is only 2 years older than Esperanza, has been married and has 2 children. Her husband has left her, but returns sometimes, and he also beats his wife. Esperanza's mother tells her that she is a smart cookie and she should not make the same mistake her mother made and quit school. Esperanza at that young age decides that she would like to own her own home, which would not belong to any man. She knows that one day she will pack her books and writing material and leave Mango Street, but she will have left only to come back to help others who cannot get out on their own. The film I watched is called A Better Life. It was made in the year 2011. It is a story of Carlos Galindo, who is a Mexican illegal immigrant and dreams of giving a better life to his 14-year-old son, Luis, and better opportunities. As a single parent and as a gardener and a day laborer, he's unable to earn much money or spend much time with Luis. Luis is dating Ruthie, who is a local gang member's niece, and Carlos is frightened that Luis will drift into the local gang culture. Hoping to become self-employed, Carlos buys a truck and gardening tools for $12,000 loaned by his sister, but a new employee, Santiago, steals his truck on the very first day. Unable to turn to police for help since he is an illegal immigrant, the father and son decide to go on a quest to find the stolen vehicle themselves. At this point, we see glimpses of other immigrant population living in apartments cramped with illegal immigrants, restaurant kitchen filled with undocumented staff, and gangs in poor neighborhoods. Luis reveals that unlike his father, Carlos, he considers himself American, and he's not that much into Mexican music, rodeo, or Mexican food. Luis is angry and says that even he was looking forward to a better life, a better neighborhood, and a better school, which has been snatched away from him now. However, they manage to find the stolen truck and steal it back. They are very happy, and this strengthens the father-son bond. On the way home, they are unfortunately pulled over by the police for speeding, and Carlos is arrested and placed in a prison for illegal immigrants. He's then put on a bus and deported back to Mexico. Just before leaving, he asks Luis to stay with his aunt and to focus on his studies. The last scene shows Luis is playing soccer in his school, and Carlos is in a desert in Mexico trying to come back to America and to his home. The cultural immersion event that I attended was the Cinco de Mayo celebration hosted by the city of Santa Clara. Cinco de Mayo is celebrated to rejoice the Mexican army's victory over the French in the year 1862 on May 5th. However, nowadays it is just celebrated as a fun party and a drinking day, mostly in America. At this event that is organized by the city, it was a great way to expose members of the other communities to a very popular Mexican tradition, and it reminded me of the Pluralism project that we had done earlier. There was the mariachi music performance done by a group of men and women dressed in beautiful traditional outfits. Then there was a dance performance of the famous folklorico style of dancing. It was an exciting performance by men and women, again wearing bright, vibrant colors. Everyone enjoyed, and I felt very welcome and comfortable being there. They also told me that another very popular tradition is celebrating Dia de los Muertos, which is the Day of the Dead, where you remember family and friends who have passed away. They decorate the graves, eat good food, and have parades on that day. The personal interview I was able to do with Marcos Hernandez, whose name I have changed. He is a 42-year-old man and lives in his own mobile home in Gilroy. He's an employee at a pool cleaning and repair store. He came to the US as an illegal immigrant when he was 17 years old. He said it was fairly easy in those days because he could just walk 7 or 8 miles east of San Diego border, cross over with the help of a guide, walk to San Diego, hop on a bus, and go to Los Angeles. The first thing he did was learn English, which proved very helpful in getting jobs. He met his wife a couple of years later, who had also crossed into the US similarly. His wife struggled a lot with learning English, but he got her a tutor to work on that. She now works as a cleaning staff in a hospital. He has 5 children aged 5 years to 21 years. The 5 and the 8-year-old are very American and have assimilated well in their school. All his children speak English and Spanish. I got the sense that his wife had an equal say in family matters. They attend a Mexican Catholic church in Gilroy and participate in traditions like baptism, weddings, and funerals there. They have large gatherings, which are generally with the extended family and includes his wife's 2 brothers' families. In these gatherings, men, women, children, young and old, they all mingle together. My summary and synthesis of this whole project in relation to children is that Mexican immigrant children are the fastest growing population in American schools today, and education can be the key to a better quality of life for all of them. They are frequently considered at risk academically, and as educators, we have to be aware how various aspects of their lives, including their health, the home environment, and childcare arrangements, help or hurt their academic performance. In addressing educational inequality, we need to target the earliest year of school and preschool programs. Often these children start school late, behind their peers, and only fall further behind over the years. We need to emphasize the importance of home-based parental involvement, which has a direct positive impact on school performance of these kids. Thank you.